We're going on. The eighth, episode 8 of 9 of the Story of English, The Loaded Weapon. And today I'd ask you to look at these two parts of it. That's maybe a little bit of a slow start, but it seems like 3 days is about perfect to get through any given episode. Before I go on, that word cultural cringe, I was looking at what I talked about yesterday, and cultural cringe, something came to my mind. I remembered something. The crick versus creek for this spelling. There's a woman who's actually she's of one of the richest families in this area, and her children were in school with me. They came to public school for the most part, and I was their teacher, and she was very well educated herself, not actually from here, from east of here somewhere. New Jersey, I'm not sure. But in any case, she was on the farm because I had a club. It might have been the Shakespearean troupe. We're here on a field trip, and I mentioned something about the water. I got the water out of the creek. And I think she had this cultural cringe. And she actually said to me, don't you mean creek? And I took offense a little bit. I do take a little bit of offense at that. I said, I don't talk like that unless I have to. And when I'm here on my farm, it's a crick to me. And I mean, we didn't argue a lot about it, but she was not trying to be harsh or anything like that. She was just a little bit shocked that, having been educated at Harvard and being a school teacher, that I would say crick, because she has had that attitude, partly because she's not from here, I think. But in any case, she's a lovely lady. But anyway, I gave her a cultural cringe. Okay, this episode is about Ireland and Ireland versus English. English versus Irish. It's dated 1986, and that's why you see the street warfare. Boy, times have really changed in Ireland since then. The documentary is dated 1986. And so that was still in the heat of all that street fighting that was going on in Ireland. And I'm not a history teacher, and I'm not really prepared to explain about that. But Irish and Catholics, and anyway, you could certainly look into it, and maybe should. The Book of Kells is going to be mentioned. The Book of Kells, absolutely wonderful work, and I just mention it because these are things that you could use as a springboard to go off and look into more about it. This is there in the west coast of Ireland, and I would like to point out that there's no trees, almost not a single tree in sight. Makes you wonder, what did they use for the rafters of their houses back then in the day. And I noticed for the field layout, I've said often, I'm always looking at things in the background. He's going to mention the oral tradition. Now, the oral tradition, I took one of the better courses that I took at Harvard was on the subject of the oral tradition. That's where I got my feeling for Homer and Beowulf, and Beowulf before that, but the Kalevala from Finland. The oral tradition deals with literature that was not written. It was not memorized. Well, you might say it was memorized, but it was not written down, it was not put into books, it was not passed on that way. It was passed on as part of the oral tradition. So, important words to me. He gives the year 1170. I think that's the first that English came to Ireland. And I sense a real need on my part, and I'm sure it's on most of my viewers' parts as well, for a need for historical knowledge, especially when you get to England and outside of the United States. Really helps to have some historical knowledge. And I intend to deal with that later in the year. You'll see. Murphy's Stout. Boy, I perked up when I heard Murphy's Stout. That's my choice drink when I'm in England. Stout is a dark beer. It's much stronger tasting. It's sort of different. But anyway, Guinness, I think that's how you spell it. This is the one that's known so well in the United States, Guinness Stout. But my own choice, and I had nothing in it. When I compared them, I went, whoa, that's good stuff. And of course, you can imagine that I love seeing that antique brewery as he's talking about the various things. And finally, he comes up to this idea of an Irish accent of English. I think there's a lot of people, and I might have been there at one point too, where I thought that Irish accent was Irish. Oh, no, no, no. Irish is a completely distinct language, and you'll hear it there at the beginning. Most people would recognize and associate with Ireland is English, but it's an Irish accent. All right, see you tomorrow.